Back in the Victorian era, when a family lost a child, they would make what was called a mourning doll. This was mainly for very rich families, and they would make a mourning doll to look exactly like the child that they lost. It would often be made of wax, and sometimes the hair would be taken straight from the dead body and put onto the doll to add an extra level of authenticity. Then the dolls would be put into the real crib of the child they lost. Their clothes would be changed every single day. They would be cared for like a real child to help the family cope with the loss. Back in that time, medicine was significantly less advanced, and the mortality rate for children and infants was a lot higher than it is now. A lot of kids died very young back then, so mourning dolls were a very popular thing.
Cinderella ended happily ever after, right? Yeah, wrong. The real story of Cinderella is actually pretty gruesome. In the German version, Cinderella has two beautiful stepsisters who just happen to be incredibly horrible. There's no fairy godmother, in fact there's actually just doves. And these doves are sent by her dead mother. So the prince actually holds 3 balls instead of 1. And at midnight on the 3rd night, the prince lays down a tar trap for Cinderella, which is where she loses her shoe. And when her wicked stepsisters find out about this, they each cut off different parts of their feet to fit into the shoe. However, they do end up getting caught because there's blood dripping from their feet. The prince eventually finds his girl, and at their wedding, the magic doves reappear to peg out the evil sister's eyes. And apparently Cinderella slams the lid of a chest on her stepmother's neck, breaking it and killing her. However, in the Vietnamese version, this is how things actually go. Pause to read. I guess Cinderella got a happy ending after all, but her stepmother and stepsister did.
The photo behind me looks pretty normal, right? This is a photo that was taken of Michael Rockefeller when he was in New Guinea. Little did he know he would not be making it back from this trip. His death was ruled as a drowning. However, it's unknown whatever really happened to him. It was believed that he was kidnapped by a cannibalistic tribe that was in the area that he was staying. His body was never found.
Serial Killers You've Never Heard Of, Part 4. This is Nikolai Zumagaliv. He was also known as Metal Fang, because of his unusual false teeth made of white metal, terrorizing women in Kazakhstan between 1979 and 1980. He said his main goal was to rid the world of prostitutes. He would lure women into parks at night and hack them up with an axe or a knife. He was also infamous for cannibalism, serving the meat of his victims to friends at dinner parties. During one of his parties, 2 men discovered a severed head and intestines in his kitchen, which ultimately led to his arrest. He was charged with 7 murders total. Some speculate that it could be anywhere between 50 and 100 victims. The courts found him guilty and declared him insane, committed to a mental institute in Uzbekistan. He actually escaped from here for 2 years, and was thankfully recaptured.
In real life, The Little Mermaid actually doesn't have a happy ending. The original story of The Little Mermaid goes something like this. After she is given human legs, every step she takes feels as though the soles of her feet are being stabbed with knives. To make matters worse, the prince ends up marrying someone else and never finds out that the Little Mermaid was the woman who saved him from drowning. The Little Mermaid is then given a chance to get her tail back by stabbing the prince in the heart. Unfortunately, she can't bear to kill the prince and throws herself into the ocean, and she then dies and her body dissolves into froth. In fact, a lot of Disney films actually have super dark origins. So if you want to hear the dark origin of another princess, comment down below.
What's something you wish you didn't know? Stitch this with your response. But here are a few freaky facts that you can never unhear. Statistically speaking, the average person walks past 16 murderers in their lifetime. If you get infected with rabies, it can take years before any symptoms show up. Now, rabies is curable if you catch it before symptoms set in, but if you don't, the mortality rate is over 99%, and it's an absolutely horrible way to die. There are currently thousands of people who mysteriously vanished from national parks, never to be heard from again. And if you look at the map of missing persons in the US, it lines up a little too well with our cave systems. According to what's known as the Troxler effect, your brain can trick you into seeing monsters in the mirror. Being encased in cement is one of the worst ways to die. It doesn't crush you or suffocate you. It incinerates you by sucking all the moisture out of your body. And statistically, if 1,000 people comment on this post, 9 will die this year.
Welcome to 1 Minute Mysteries. At 21 years old, cigar girl Mary Rogers was the woman of many young men's dreams, but she was engaged to a man named Daniel Payne. On July 25th, 1841, Mary told her fiancé that she was going out of town to visit her aunt and that she would return the next day. She did not return, however, and 3 days later, her body was found in the Hudson River in nearby New Jersey. She was last seen in a New Jersey tavern with a man whom the owner, Frederica Loss, described as a tall, mysterious man. Mary's murder was sensationalized heavy in the news and was even the inspiration for a 1942 Edgar Allan Poe story. That October, Mary's fiancé Daniel took his own life by drinking an excessive amount of laudanum, a drink made with opiates that was commonly used to treat pain at the time. Many took Daniel's death as a sign of his guilt. However, the next year, tavern owner Frederica Loss was accidentally shot by one of her sons, and on her deathbed she gave a gruesome confession. She claimed the mysterious man was a doctor whose botched abortion caused Mary's death, and they dumped her body into the river. But her autopsy said she wasn't pregnant.
The origin of Rapunzel is actually a roller coaster. So our story starts with a pregnant mother who has cravings for a certain herb which can only be found in the witch's garden. She is caught by the witch and the witch demands her firstborn baby, which is Rapunzel. Rapunzel is then locked away for years, and the only human contact she has is with her mother. So then the prince pretends to be the witch and sneaks up the tower. And let's just say him and Rapunzel do the dirty. And every night he comes back to do the dirty with her. But remember, Rapunzel hasn't learned anything about the outside world, so she doesn't know that intercourse can lead to pregnancy. She realizes months later that she's pregnant because her clothes don't fit her anymore. The witch then sends Rapunzel to a desert, cuts off her hair, and tells her to give birth. And remember, Rapunzel doesn't know what the fuck giving birth is. The witch goes back with Rapunzel's hair, and as the prince tries to climb up again, he falls and goes blind because his face landed on thorns. But Rapunzel finds him, cries, and fixes his face.
So there's this YouTuber who literally just records himself sitting down, smiling, and staring at you for hours. This is Benjamin Bennett, and his videos freak me out. They last for about 4 hours, and it's just him smiling and staring at the camera. But one day, something very strange happened, and he got out of character. And as creepy as he is alone, one day he broke out of character and started crying for no reason, or at least that's what it seemed, until you took a closer look and listened at the video. You can't really hear what I'm trying to talk about in that particular clip, but if you listen closely to the actual video, you will hear what sounds like the clicking of a gun. Many people have their conspiracies as to what they believe is going on with Benjamin Bennett, but most believe that he's being held hostage and forced to make these videos. If you want to look for yourself, go check it out.
The 29-year-old Filipino woman who loved killing humans and then eating them. The woman in the picture killed and ate more than 30 girls and many other humans, including her husband, and had kept their meat in a refrigerator. She had been eating human meat for a long time and enjoyed it. In fact, she even confessed to feeding her family and friends this meat at a party, without their knowledge. And apparently her guests had said that the food was delicious. She said that she had eaten the victims due to her inner desires, and if she was given another chance, she would repeat this action again without any interruptions. Even in prison, she attacked a female guard and ate off one of her fingers.
Yo, what's up? Here's some scary facts about our world that you probably didn't want to know. Part 32. In SpongeBob, the reason why so many fish went to eat at the Krusty Krab rather than the Chum Bucket is because the Chum Bucket actually served chum, which has ground up pieces of fish in it, making the Chum Bucket a cannibal restaurant. In China, if you're a convicted rapist, they will actually mutilate your genitals and let you suffer for a while and then kill you. But in Saudi Arabia, they will just behead you in front of the whole city. There's a very rare type of tumor known as a teratoma, and it can have anything from human teeth to hair to eyeballs inside of it. But like I said, it's very rare. Back during World War II, it was very difficult to reconstruct certain features on your face, so they would take a finger and use it to reconstruct your nose. So you would lose a finger, but get your nose back. That's some pretty creepy stuff if you ask me, but stick around if you want to see more just like that.
Not so fun facts that will ruin your day. After you die, your brain remains active for up to 10 minutes, but in your head those 10 minutes can last years. And it is said that in those 10 minutes you live your life again. Maybe you are already dead and you are in those 10 minutes. It was legal to mail children in packages from 1913 to 1920. The youngest girl to ever give birth was 5 years old. Just imagine the pain.
Morbid Facts, Part 140. In 2009, actor Dean Winters suffered from a bacterial infection and died in the ambulance but was revived. After recovering, he developed gangrene and had multiple amputations and skin grafts. He is now better known for playing Mayhem in Allstate insurance commercials. Janis Joplin changed her will just 2 days before dying at the age of 27. She gave her estate to her parents and gave additional cash to her siblings. She even set aside $2,500 for her friends to throw a party in her honor and to quote, get blasted after I'm gone. Cat burning was a form of entertainment in France prior to the 1800s. People would gather cats in a net and burn them over a bonfire while they laughed and cheered. This was done mainly because cats were associated with witchcraft and were burned as symbols of the devil.
Did you know that the horror movie The Orphan was based off a real-life event? In 2009, the film The Orphan was released, and it was about a couple who adopted a young girl who wasn't exactly who she said she was. You see, this whole time, this couple thought that they adopted a 13-year-old girl, when really, they took in a 33-year-old woman with a hormone disorder, and the whole time, she was acting as if she was a young girl. You see, but what if I told you that this story actually was based off a 33-year-old woman who posed as a 13-year-old boy in Russia who was adopted and eventually was joined with another family where she caused havoc. You see, she actually convinced these two sisters to allow her to come live with them, and well, one of the sisters had a disorder in which she was very easily manipulated. See, the girl posing as an orphan actually convinced the sister with a disorder to lock her children in the basement and deprive them of food and keep them locked down there in a cage. The mother of the children actually got arrested, but the orphan made it out.
Welcome to the ruins of the Brownsville General Hospital, which was once a hotspot for urban explorers and is currently under demolition. I wanted to stop by to say goodbye to this hospital and also give a little bit of the history for all of you. Construction on the hospital began in 1908 and was finished in 1916, though the hospital began to see patients before it was completed. The hospital was built in an attempt to fill a desperate need for the Brownsville community. Until then, residents had to go 30 miles to McKeesport Hospital, which was very dangerous considering transportation in those times mainly consisted of taking a train or boat. By 1965, the hospital was at its capacity and eventually reopened as the Golden Age Nursing Home, which unfortunately was shut down after a federal investigation in the 1980s for abuse of the elderly.
Videos that seem innocent but have a terrifying backstory. Part 7. Just minutes after killing 3 people and injuring 260 others near the finish line of the Boston Marathon, bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev stopped by the local Whole Foods to grab some milk. In the 1980s, State Treasurer Bud Dwyer was convicted of bribery, and during a public interview in office, he seemed normal and professed his innocence. But after being harassed by journalists, he pulled a gun out of an envelope and shot himself in the mouth on live TV. This TikTok shows a group of friends walking along the beach in Seattle when they stumbled upon a black suitcase sitting underneath the pier.
Oh, wait, open it. Open it. It stinks, y'all.
It washed out.
Oh! Oh!
It was later discovered the suitcase contained the mutilated body parts of Jessica Lewis and her boyfriend of 8 years, Austin Winter.
Creepy Ask Reddits, Part 3. What is the scariest story you know that is 100% real? I was working the evening shift at a gas station. A man comes in all disoriented, so I go to help him out. He has a gash on his head and doesn't know where he was. I couldn't see any crashes around, so I assumed he had fallen or something. Normally, we're supposed to stay behind the glass shielded register area whenever someone is in the store. I, being a nice human being, went to help while calling the police/EMS. They got there and checked him out and thought that his head may have been fractured. They took him to the ER and I went back to work. Cops stopped back on by for some coffee a few hours later. They told me the guy got hit by a baseball bat trying to break into a little girl's bedroom and was wanted for rape and murder in 2 other states. I never left the register area at night again.
This is the #1 place I would avoid if you're ever in Louisiana. This is the LaLaurie Mansion in New Orleans, and American Horror Story actually did some coverage of this in some of their seasons. I've never seen the show, but what I did read is that they didn't film in the actual mansion because they believed it was cursed, and so they filmed in a different location because nobody wanted to film in the mansion. The woman who owned the mansion, her name was Delphine, and she owned many slaves at the time, unfortunately, but the way she treated the slaves was absolutely abysmal. When a fire broke out at one of her parties, firefighters broke down a door and they found in the room slaves that were chained and tortured and just left in absolutely terrible condition. One report even reveals of a young slave girl that was brushing Delphine's hair, and when she accidentally yanked her hair, Delphine started whipping her so badly that she actually ran up to the roof and jumped off and ended up dying to avoid Delphine. If I were you, I would definitely avoid the LaLaurie mansion in New Orleans.
You're not going to believe why this place is called Dead Man's Pass. Years ago, this area was known as Murray Pass, but in the mid-1800s, some travellers passing through the area picked up a lost man. He was in bad shape, being lost in the Aussie bush for some time, and died before anyone could even figure out his name. Not wanting to travel with the man's body and unable to bury it, they shoved it inside a hollowed-out tree along the river, hence the name of this spot. The area is also said to be haunted. Many to pass through here have seen shadow figures and full-bodied apparitions, while others claim to have had their legs touched by the unseen. Would you walk through Dead Man's Pass? Full videos on the Amy's Crypt YouTube channel.